How old were you when the war started?
4.
How much food did you get whilst the war was on? And what sort of food did you eat?
We got 2 loaves of bread a week, and we got 2 pints of milk a week. We got 12 eggs, a dozen eggs, and 5 pound of potatoes and things like that. Very short. We were very short, and we had a ration boot that we couldn't get no more. Once you'd spent all your coupons in your ration boot, that was it until the next week.
Okay. What else was rationed besides food?
Petrol. If you had a car, you got coupons for petrol, so you were allowed so many gallons of petrol a week, but not so many. So you had to be careful how you run your cars or motorcycles or whatever you had that used petrol.
When did rationing finish?
I should say round about 1948.
Do you have any funny stories to tell me when you were in the army during your national service?
Yeah, I was attached to the Royal Tank Regiment as a medical in the medical corps, and we was on manoeuvres once when we was in Germany, and one night I got called out at 2 o'clock in the morning with my ambulance to attend to a man in the guard tent that had collapsed, and it was pitch black. So when I got down to the guard tent, there was this man laid on the floor, this soldier laid on the floor. So me and my colleague got the stretcher to put him on, and he wakened up as we was about to put him on the stretcher, and he said, "It's not me that's collapsed, it's that man over there, that other soldier over there." He said, "I've just come off guard duty and I'm having a sleep." So we were picking the wrong person up. So we had, in the dark, we hadn't seen the other soldier collapsed at the other side of the tent. So that was a funny experience. It's a good job he wakened up, or otherwise he'd have been in hospital.
Is there any other funny stories?
I can't remember it anymore. I remember being sent to a place on the Russian border, and I was there for a fortnight's holiday because I hadn't been so well. And then when I was coming home, I had to catch the train back to a place called Paderborn, which was in Germany. And on the railway station, the guard said, "That's the train for Paderborn. Get on that one there." So I got on that train, and when the ticket man came round collecting the tickets, I were on my way to Holland. He put me on the wrong train. So they had to stop the train, especially to let me get off. I were on the wrong train, but that wasn't my fault. It was the guard on the Russian border that put me on the wrong train. So that were another funny story. But at the time, it wasn't funny.
Do you have any badges or medals from doing your national service?
Yeah, that's my regimental badge, the Royal Army Medical Corps, and I was attached all the time for 2 years to the Royal Tank Regiment, and we was always on manoeuvres, and that's why I was out all winter. I was always on manoeuvres, and I have a medal for 2 years service as a national serviceman. Everybody got a medal if you'd done 2 years, and I have that one medal.
Did your mum and dad tell you any stories about the war?
Well, my mum and dad, they had a farm, and at night you had to make sure there was no light showing out of your house. You had to have the blinds completely closed. And this particular night, my mother and dad hadn't closed the blinds correctly, and there was a light shining out. And my dad heard the police car coming up the road, and because we were showing a light, So my dad realised right away it was the police coming. So my dad turned the light out right away. So when the police come through the door, they couldn't understand why there were no light showing. Because they asked my dad, had that light been out all the time? And my dad said it had. So it was my dad's word against them, but my dad was telling lies. He hadn't shut the blinds properly, but they couldn't touch him because when they walked in the house, there was no light on. But the light had been on. So they got away with that, or else it'd have been summoned. You were summoned if you showed the light, because that were letting the Germans up in the sky know where you were.
What do you think young people can learn from what happened during the war?
Well, I think they could learn that there's no winners on either side. It's just there's all people losing the relatives and everything. It's just one big chaos. There's nothing gained on either side. Whoever wins or loses, it's a big upset to both sides. There's nothing to win. But so they're not very good things, aren't wars at all. They're a bad idea.
What type of shelters did you use and who made them?
The shelters we used were made of concrete and brick, and they were made by the local authorities. They was all made by the local authorities.
How did you feel during the war?
Well, I can't remember it too good because I was only 5 and 6. I don't remember much about the war. I don't remember it. I wasn't old enough to understand the war. I was too young.
Did you have any relatives that went to war?
Yeah, I had 2 cousins went to war and never came back. They were both shot on the front line. 2 cousins.
How many air raid practices did you do?
Several practices. And then you realise after a bit that once the sirens went off, you knew exactly what it meant. You didn't need too many practices because you knew once there were aeroplanes above, aeroplanes on the way, bombers coming on the way, and so you went to immediately as soon as you heard the sirens, you went to the shelters, the concrete shelters.
And last question, did you celebrate the end of war? If yes, then how?
Yeah, we did celebrate the end of war by street parties, dancing in the street with very little food. We couldn't have slap-up meals and that, but most of it were dancing and singing and that kind of thing. It was just that we're all over the moon, that it had come to an end, but there were no big eatings or drinkings. We hadn't got nothing like that to celebrate with like it is today, because the rationing was still going on with nothing to celebrate with, only the radio and dancing, things like that, and cheering in the streets, everybody clapping. So we were glad it were all over.